You're watching HCAM TV.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Hopkinton Hangout Hour, the original HCAM series produced to keep you informed and connected during these uncertain times. This afternoon, we will bring you an extended and pre-recorded segment hosted by our superintendent, Dr. Carol Cavanaugh. She will be talking with the Board of Health Director and the school head nurse, and the topic is where they stand on opening up our schools safely. It's a great in-depth and smart look at the challenges before us, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. But first, we have a mini segment featuring HCAM volunteer extraordinaire John Ritz and my son extraordinaire Andrew Cozzens. We'll be looking at a couple of their recent nature photos and encouraging you to share yours for a future segment of the Hangout Hour. Hi, Mom. Welcome to the show. All right, Andrew and John, thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason I wanted you on was because I know that you've both been taking some really cool shots lately. And John, are you ready to share the shot that you know I'm going to ask you about? Because there's a great story behind how you got it.
Sure. Let me pull it up. There we go.
All right. John
Sure.
had shared this with us, and it's on our website slideshow. And I followed up with him to see what it took him to get that shot.
All right. Can you see it?
Oh, we can see it all right.
All right. So this is Comet Neowise, which has been in the area for several weeks now. It's kind of disappearing now into the haze of the moon and such and fading away. It approached Earth at its closest a couple of days ago. This is over at Lake Whitehall. I actually had to go out 2 nights in a row to get it. First night I couldn't see it at all. Second night I couldn't see it with the naked eye, but I took along some binoculars and was just scanning the sky, and all of a sudden there's this fuzzy thing in my binoculars. I said, that's it. So I took my camera, which is just a Nikon digital SLR, and I had a small zoom lens on it, and I aimed it about where I thought the comet was that I'd seen in the binoculars, and I guessed at the focus because I had to use manual focus. I guessed at the exposure setting and everything, clicked it, and the way my camera works, I wound up with a 10-second exposure, and after it takes the picture, it takes another 10 seconds for the camera to process the picture. So I'm just sitting here in the darkness, staring at my camera. It lights up, and there is this picture. And I lucked out. I got the stars. I got the framing nicely.
Now, you made trouble. You made trouble for Andrew and I because we saw that, and I was like, Andrew, that's Lake Whitehall. Jump in the car and let's go. You can see it's not that dark out, so it must be kind of early. So, it's only 8:30, 8:45 now, so let's jump in there and see. Right, Andrew?
Yeah, it didn't look like that in person.
No.
It was more of a smudgy star.
Yep. Yeah. So was that the only picture you took, John?
That night, yes. Actually, no. I stayed there probably another half hour. I took probably 20 more pictures. Tried zooming, tried different exposures. None of them came out as good as the very first one that I accidentally got. So
and I can't even. You couldn't even see it, and you got it centered. It's
absolutely
like beautiful.
Yep.
And that was the other thing, by the way. I expected to see that when I drove out to Lake Whitehall.
No.
But instead, we just saw the little dot.
I will say that the first time I went out there, I had to hike probably about 5 minutes to the woods with a headlamp, and I was using a red light on my headlamp to keep my vision good. And I didn't see a root that was on the ground, and I fell completely flat on my face. Actually broke my tripod. The camera fell off the tripod, and no, I take it back. That was this night. So this picture was done by literally balancing my camera on top of the tripod and hoping it wouldn't move while I took it. But
Wow.
yeah, fun.
Wow. All right. So if you can stop the share now, Andrew, what have you been looking at lately with your camera?
All right, so that's a hard act to follow, but here's a
No
plan.
pressure. No pressure.
um, this is just a plant that I thought was neat. And when I got home, I believe it is a bull thistle, which is actually the spikiest thistle in New England, which is kind of neat, I think.
Oh yeah, you can definitely see. Wow, that's a lot of spikes on there.
Yeah, it's spiky everywhere.
And you know what? I mean, don't put it down. That's a great shot. You know what I really like about that? It is so sharp in focus, and the background is blurry. That is just like such a mark of professionalism. It really enhances the composition of the thistle. Not only you also have it coming up at an angle, and there's this thing coming in, so you got a little bit of energy in that shot. And the big splotch of color. It's a great shot.
Very nice.
Just
That's
a
pretty
nasty,
much all accidental, but
just a nasty looking plant.
yeah.
Imagine if any of us knew what the heck we were doing.
I know.
And then let's see what else I have here. Oh, this is a neat butterfly that I saw near the Beaver Dam.
Oh yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what kind it is. I'm not great with butterflies, but it was this kind of iridescent blue that I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, can you zoom in on that?
Yes, but it won't do any good because this one was on my cell phone.
Oh, okay. You
There
brought
it
your cell phone picture to the TV show, huh?
Yeah. Another cell phone picture. This is a Decay's brown snake that Rachel found in the backyard. And it was pretty, it seemed friendly. It was probably more frightened, but it was pretty calm in Rachel's hands.
Well, how does the snake look angry?
If it's like, thrashing around. If you picked up a garter snake, it would act differently.
All right. So you can stop sharing now.
All right.
Cool.
Those are really good.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to contribute. I'm going to contribute to this segment.
Oh boy.
Go for it.
Can you even imagine what I'm going to share, Andrew?
No.
Here we go.
Oh.
I like the angle.
Yes, thank you. I love you. Look at how regal he looks, huh? Yeah.
What a face.
That's really. I take most of my nature pictures of Percy.
All right.
What else you got, John? What else you been doing lately?
Hang on. Let me see if I can. Let me get another one for you. I pulled a bunch of. I was surprised when I was pulling pictures. I had 3 favorites, and they were each taken with a different device. One was with my phone. One was with my digital SLR. And one was with a little handheld. So let me get this up here and share this. This is also over at Lake Whitehall. In fact, all the pictures I picked were over at Whitehall, and I go over there a lot because I can get there in 5 minutes with my kayak. And I tend to have a fascination with weather and clouds. And this day, the really high altitude streaming clouds, and then the lower, what are those, cumulonimbus?
I think so.
Clouds down there. There was a storm coming in, and I wanted to try to get that shot, but that was
that's really great. I love seeing trees or sky reflected in water. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah. So I'll stop that one.
Okay. Now, do you have any attachments for your cell phone? I have seen ones that they strap a little tiny lens over the lens on the phone.
I do, but it was a giveaway. I was representing my company at a job fair, and the trinkets that they were handing out to all the participants was this little thing that you can put on. And I've tried it a few times. It actually works. It's hard to center it directly on the lens.
Yeah.
But it provides a fairly nice. I've never used it for anything other than just to test it, but
yeah. And what does it do? Is it a zoom thing, or does it add?
It's just a magnifier.
Okay. Can you zoom on it, or is it a certain set?
I think it's just a set. I think it's a set magnification.
Okay. I see billboards, and they have iPhones that have that on there, and they take amazing pictures with it. So
I
That's
tend to
cool.
think that there's more of a market for iPhone add-ons
Yep.
than Android. I don't see a lot on, and I mean, I don't look for them, but my impression is that they make a lot for iPhones because people tend to think of photography in iPhones.
Right. Right. All right, Andrew, pull out another photo for us.
All right,
We have
sure.
2 minutes left.
I've got this one. This one was kind of special, I thought. I found this near the Beaver Dam, which is an ex-fox. And there were other bones from the fox. I believe it was probably killed by a coyote and then scavenged by a vulture. But that was pretty neat to find, I thought.
Are those holes in the top of its head?
Yes, that's probably from the vulture.
Wow.
Getting at the brain matter.
How big is that?
About as big as a fist, I would say. A little bit bigger. There was evidence of having been a fox in the area.
Yeah.
Just fox scat on rocks and that kind of thing. And this may have even been the fox that we used to see in the backyard. But
It looks like a vertebrae.
oh yeah, there. Oh yep, yeah, that's a vertebra. There was actually a pretty long section of vertebrae and ribs nearby.
Wow,
which
cool.
was, I thought, pretty neat. Not everyone in the family agreed, but
No, it's kind of on here for a long time, by the way.
okay, we'll move on.
Okay, I've got about 4 minutes left, so we're gonna do a couple more from each of you.
All right. Well, here's one of a tree that's been partially gnawed by beavers. And
Is this recent?
Yep, this is probably in the last couple weeks. I took this in Upton at a Heritage Park.
This is exciting because behind us is a swampy poncha where beavers made a dam, and Andrew thought they were relocated, and then a little while ago he thinks they came back. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it does seem that the hole in the dam has been patched. So. All right.
Okay.
And one more from me. These are tadpoles, actually, in the beaver pond earlier in the summer. And you can see these little black dots are actually just very large numbers of tadpoles.
Oh yeah, I see them. Yeah, they are very dark, very inky black.
Yeah.
If you can get a polarizing filter, and that would take out that sheen in the water, you'd actually be able to see them. I've had them on previous cameras.
Oh, all right. I'll definitely have to get one of those.
Yeah, I could have told you that too. I know things about stuff.
Yeah. Okay, Dad. Okay.
All right. Stop sharing. All right, John.
All right, I'll show
last couple
real quickly. Everything is from Lake Whitehall. This is since we're talking beavers, this is a beaver lodge out in. I call it Beaver Alley. There's a channel between a couple of small islands on the backside of one of the big islands, and there are at least 4 beaver lodges in here. So this is one of those.
That's big.
Yeah. And then let's see. Nope, that's the comment. And here's my last one. This was this morning out in my garden, and this was done with my cell phone. It was just happened to look down, was looking at my corn crop, and spotted this guy way down there.
That's so cute.
Right.
Perfectly centered, sharp and focused. What's on the upper left there? It looks like a grating.
Oh yeah, that's the fence in the back.
Okay. Wow.
So, got my share.
Wow, that's great. So I was thinking that now that people kind of have seen some of that we should do another episode where you come in with more of your nature shots and we kind of talk about it just like this, but on a larger segment. And we'll invite the public through our social media, Facebook and Twitter and our webpage, to submit their photos as well.
Sounds good.
So I also thought it might be fun this time around to have a little prize for what we decide is the best picture. And we have an HCAM water bottle hanging around, and we can give out 1 or 2 of those to what we think are the best pictures. So you guys in for that?
Sure.
Yeah, you're going to see some National Geographic worthy pictures if we have a HCAM bottle for a prize.
There you go. Yeah, Andrew, that's awesome. All right. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much. We will be in touch about scheduling a time, and we will promote that photo contest all over the place.
All right, awesome. Thank you for having me on. And John, it was so great to finally meet you after hearing so much transmitted through my dad.
There we go. Good to see you again. All right.
Okay, guys. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, you too.
All right, and here we go with our pre-recorded segment with Dr. Cavanaugh talking about opening up our schools safely. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, Hopkinton viewers. As you know, September is just around the corner, and with September comes back to school. Given the fact that we are starting school this year with COVID-19, we are certainly receiving a whole lot of calls in the central office about students and faculty safety as we come back. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time today here on HCAM with two special guests. One is Shaun McAuliffe, who is the Director of Public Health in Hopkinton, and Kathy Bain, who is the head nurse in the Hopkinton Public Schools, so that we could talk a little bit about some of the things that we have in place to ensure student and staff safety as we open up our buildings in the fall. Now, I want to preface my remarks today by saying that for sure, no one is ever absolutely safe and free from, contact with a COVID positive person. But we are doing all that we can in the public schools to mitigate that. And I think that that's what, we're here to talk about today. So I'm Superintendent Carol Cavanaugh, and I welcome you to the show, and I welcome my two guests. So Shaun, Kathy, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will just ask a few questions, and then probably we'll just move to more organic dialogue. But I guess, Shaun, I'd like to start with you. So you have public health statistics for us, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the number of cases that you have seen among the youth in Hopkinton. And as you know, the public schools are probably most concerned with children who are in the categories of like ages 3 to 18.
Right. So consistent with national statistics, we've had only one child under the age of, I believe, 12 that has come down with COVID. They had an extremely mild case. I think their symptoms were limited to that of like vertigo, of all things. And the child, was cleared from quarantine within 10 days and has been doing fine since. And then we had two others that contracted it, and they were in their, I think, junior, senior year. And again, their cases were mild, somewhat flu-like, and they've recovered completely. We've had an odd number of college kids that have contracted it. But again, all of our numbers are consistent with that, which has been seen and reported nationally.
Yes, I think, we have put together also a reentry advisory group, and both Shaun and Kathy sit on that group. It's a 36-member team. And I think that as we have been, looking at reentry, we are very much heartened by the fact that I think in Hopkinton, you've had about 131 active cases only in the time of the entire pandemic. So that's something that is very heartening to us in terms of opening our schools. When we talk about opening the schools, we certainly always say that it won't be just one practice that keeps us safe. There has to be that sort of suite of strategies that we put into place, everything from keeping 6 feet apart to wearing a mask, washing your hands, all of those kinds of things. Kathy, can you talk a little bit about some of the practices that you would recommend for our students and staff while they are in schools on a regular basis?
Sure. I think the number one thing is we want people to stay home, staff and the students if they're sick, to make sure they're washing their hands, wearing their masks if they're able to, looking to other options and supports for staff and students who wouldn't be able to wear any kind of facial coverage. Throughout the day, monitoring their symptoms as well, having specific guidelines to visit the nurse and what that will look like, because that's going to be a little bit different in terms of just coming to the nurse. We're going to have protocols in place so that someone in the building will call first to say someone's coming, and the nurse can determine, is this a visit because someone got injured at recess if we're going outside, or because they have some symptoms that they need to be seen in another location, which we're calling a medical waiting room or isolation room. So definitely the nurse piece is going to look a little different. We're excited to finish looking at protocols to put into place. All the things are going to help us to be healthy throughout the day.
Yes, that I'll just kind of piggyback a little bit on that. Parents have said, and as Kathy just opened with if you are not feeling well, please stay home. We can't underscore that enough. So parents will ask frequently, what are you doing about the attendance policy? And we are certainly going to excuse any COVID-related absences this year. And the last thing we want is for people to feel like their children will be in trouble if they don't come to school. So that might send them. What we want you to do really is to keep your child home. And, a second thing I think that is kind of important to note is that when the commissioner sent out information to families about should we be 3 feet apart or 6 feet apart, we in the Hopkinton Public Schools are committed to 6 feet of social distancing. And we are even thinking about in classrooms, what does that look like on top of a little bit of personal space? So my guess is that once we have all of our classrooms arranged, there would never be students who are closer than 7 feet, sort of nose to nose, if that's kind of a good way to look at it. Would the two of you talk a little bit about how your two departments will interact in the event that somebody does call down and say to you, Kathy, I think we might have a student exhibiting those symptoms, or Shaun, you learn through testing that we have a student who has tested positive in the Hopkinton Public Schools. So I guess I've gone a long way to say that information will come from both sides.
We've been working in partnership, since March. So I think, we've got a well-established dialogue and set of communication in place. And then we'll continue to maintain that moving forward. We've worked with all of your school nurses over the summer. So everybody understands what the policies and procedures are. And then we're all committed to making sure that we're providing as safe an environment as we can. So, if there's a case, we're all familiar with the set of symptoms that we're looking at. And then, one of the things that we've been discussing throughout the summer and as we start planning is, one of the key issues is that the symptoms that we're all going to be looking for are the same symptoms that are consistent with a cold or the flu or your typical respiratory symptoms. So, it's, as Kathy said earlier, it's key that we keep our kids that are sick at home. And then if we're doing a good job at home monitoring illness and symptoms, and we're communicating what symptoms or seasonal allergies, et cetera, that our child might have to the school nurses, that information shared with the nurses and coupled with communication with the health department will help us better able to surgically assess whether or not a child is at risk, whether or not we have to put a cohort out, and whether or not testing is required. And then we'll be working, in conjunction with the parents and the school nurses to, again, make sure that we're identifying potential case contacts, that we'll be communicating with the parents directly about the symptoms that they may need to be on the lookout for. But all of this is dependent on us communicating within the school and the municipality, and parents communicating with their children and really controlling that risk at home. Kathy, you want to?
And I think to sort of back on that, sure. So we partnered with public health at the start of what became the pandemic in March, and we've had a great relationship with both Shaun and Casey on an ongoing basis. We pretty much talk almost every other day. We email frequently. There's definitely an ongoing communication there. As recently as this morning, I was reaching out to Casey with some questions. So that's definitely been a huge means of us communicating all the time. I would say that in the school year as it begins, a lot of guidance we'll be looking for them as we follow all the new guidelines. Students that we're seeing and sort of feeling out, this student is asymptomatic, but has this staff member is symptomatic. I think there's going to be A lot of times we're going to be working together to kind of filter out those pieces. I'm also frequently in contact with Stephanie Boder, who's our school physician, to kind of look over protocols we're developing. And she's been a great resource for us. And I know Shaun knows her, spends time with her as well. So I think all of those things are going to help to allow us to free flow our communication throughout the day with staff, students, parents, the community.
And I would add that, you know, we have programs in place right now that we are looking at and monitoring and evaluating as, you know, how we can model and how we can, I mean, these programs are implementing protocols that are intended to be rolled out at the start of the school year. And we're looking at these and figuring out, you know, how we can better maybe hone a practice or what communication needs to go out to either the parents, the teachers, or the staff. And if we're monitoring these, and again, modeling the behavior that we expect. And then if everybody is diligent at monitoring for symptoms, you know, I am confident that we can provide a safe school environment. We've seen programs like the Y, we've seen programs, you know, within the school and other programs in our own Parks and Rec department, where we've implemented these same policies that will be deployed, and those have caught, you know, either cases or possible cases before they've got into the program, and we've been able to run our summer programming really without disruption, and I believe all of these programs have run safely, and, you know, knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood a lot, we haven't had any instances of illness in a program that has implemented the programs that the school department will be rolling out. So.
And I think in addition to that, you know, we looked at training prior to the start of our program, the extended school year program, and looking to building on that as we enter into re-entry for the school year and what our trainings will look like for the staff and the families and resources. And I think we're just building on what we've found to be successful so far and adding recent guidelines.
Right, and these programs and procedures are consistent with everything that we've been running with our public safety departments, our DPW, with the health department itself. And again, you know, we have right now the lowest rate of absenteeism in these programs or in these departments. We haven't, knock on wood, had any illness within or, you know, COVID issues since we've rolled out these programs, gone through the education, the training, and we are utilizing, you know, the same types of PPE protocols. We're using the same systems for monitoring that will be deployed at the school. And again, it's been successful on the municipal side. You know, I work at the fire department, and we review, we rehearse, we review our policies at the hospitals. All of this stuff is going to be what we roll out in the school system. And again, we've demonstrated that it works. So I think that we can, you know, I believe that going into the school year, we're going in with some good plans, protocols, and procedures.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about we've demonstrated that it works. I think it's so important for families to hear that, you know, not only are the adults in town coming to work every day and making very good choices about, you know, PPE and adhering to wearing their masks and following all the protocols, but we additionally have, you're right, summer camps, Park and Rec, the Y, ESY, all of those programs are open where children and adults are interacting, and they are doing so, you know, sort of safely and, again, I will say, knock on wood, but successfully. So that's nice for us to hear. I will share just briefly an anecdote that I share sort of wherever I go, but in the Reentry Advisory Committee, we have a hospital CEO who has shared that she has 3,500 physicians in her hospital, and 72 of those people have tested positive through the COVID pandemic. And for the most part, those are folks who are, getting the virus outside of the hospital and bringing it in, as opposed to getting it inside of the hospital from a patient, which again sort of lets us know that, with the right PPE, you can be pretty safe. I think parents may have concerns and teachers may have concerns about the virus living on surfaces. So if I'm a teacher, say, for example, that uses a desk that another teacher has used, or, a child comes into a classroom, and just to be clear, we are planning to disinfect our every classroom in every building every night. We have the capability to do that. But can you talk a little bit about how the virus lives on surfaces or doesn't live on surfaces? What are we learning about that?
If there's anything positive to come out of the cruise ship studies, the naval ship, the illness on naval ships, that gave us these active work areas for researchers to go in and study. So we've seen studies coming out of the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, I think FDA, and multiple research labs have gone in. And what we're seeing is that the COVID virus tends to last longest on hard, non-absorbent surfaces. So if we are cleaning those hard, non-absorbent surfaces, such as tabletops, push bars, door handles, your typical child's seat backs, stuff like that. Like even the CDC is recommending that a lot of these surfaces are either used after if they're cleaned after heavy use, or cleaned at least on a daily basis, the risk of transmission from those surfaces is low. Mm-hmm. Then coupled with, I would argue that, most, say, middle school age kids and older teachers, staff members don't exhibit what's called a lot of pica behavior, hand to mouth behavior. So if you're washing your hands throughout the day, especially before you eat, there should be a low risk of transmission, because you're not introducing, as long as you're keeping your hands out of your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, there should be a very low rate of transmission. When you start looking at younger children, they're not as susceptible. My understanding is that the rate of transmission by introducing the virus into your gut as opposed to your lungs is really low. So again, if we're modeling the good behavior in the elementary school aged environments, and we're having our children wash their hands frequently, if they're using hand sanitizer, if we're picking up on instances where someone may have sneezed and the child might be going after an item, if we're taking that item out of circulation and putting it into a sanitizing solution, we can control those exposures. And so at the end of the day, they're really showing that there isn't a lot of transmission through contact with contaminated surfaces. And for things like carpets, paper, those surfaces tend to attract the oily covering on this virus. And so they promote the breakdown of the virus. So again, as long as we're following the cleaning protocols that we have set up, we're utilizing the EPA approved cleaners with proper frequency, and we're really focused on hand hygiene, that shouldn't be an issue in our schools.
I'll just chime in and say a little bit about hand hygiene. And I'm not going to steal your thunder, Nurse Payne. I'm going to let you say your signature line. But one of the things that we do have in the way of protocols is, we've talked to the commissioner about reducing the number of minutes and hours the kids need to have this year for time on learning, so that we can build in time for kids to wash their hands or use hand sanitizer when they arrive. Obviously after they use the bathroom, before they eat lunch, after they eat lunch, when they move from one physical area to another, and even before dismissal. So kids will be washing their hands and using hand sanitizer all day long. In the Hopkins Middle School and High School, where there are not sinks and soap in classrooms, we have actually installed hand sanitizer dispensers in every one of those classrooms. So I do like what you're saying about, making sure that your hands are clean and they are away from your face. The other thing that I will say about faces is that we are going to be a full-on mask district from K to 12. So even if you are the kind of person who has a tendency to put your hands to your mouth, your mouth will be covered all day with a mask. Yes, we're having mask breaks, and yes, we will do education around how to put that mask on properly and how to take that mask off properly. And Kathy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about those kinds of things.
I am a person who has a shirt that says, how about you wash your hands? So I'm faithful to hand washing, and it's something we're going to do in an age appropriate kind of way. Some social stories, video, we're definitely going to be out there and kind of meeting everybody where they are, washing your hands or sanitizing before you take off your mask for your mask break, and then before you put it back on. We know that there are going to be some friends who, when you talk about sneezing, are going to need to have their mask replaced. So we're definitely going to have a backup supply. The nurses have an abundance of supply for themselves as well. And we are taking part in training. It's called fit testing with Casey, the public health nurse, to be able to wear an N95 should that need, arise. So we're definitely prepared for the staff, the students, visitors, and all of the nurses as well in terms of the PPE piece.
And Casey and I are going to run some programs over the month of August in preparation for the school year, just to get kids familiar with masks, where we might have a mask decoration day where Casey and I will teach kids over the month of August how to put them on. We'll have them decorate the masks. The last project that my intern participates in will likely be a mask promotion campaign where we're going to probably print out shirts and then encourage other children in town to come out with creative mask slogans and designs, and then we'll put those on t-shirts that we'll distribute. But one of my friends in town has come up with we put the MA in masks. So we're thinking about having some t-shirts and masks kind of with those logos. Again, and it's all to get kids comfortable with using the masks. And then we'll also be, this just came out today. It's not technically public right now, but the governor's mask order has now been put into Mass General Law. So that actually allows the health department to have a little more control over masks and mask education. So again, a lot of this, as we've discussed, it's all about education and acclimation. So it's like we're committed to getting the residents and the students there by September, and then you'll have a better baseline to work from as we start the reentry.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about families getting their children sort of accustomed to wearing their masks, one that feels comfortable on the student's face, one that kind of fits the student's face. All of those pieces are going to be very important to kind of practice at home before September. But let's imagine for a moment that in one of our classrooms across the district, we do have a student who tests positive for COVID-19. How is it that other families or teachers are made aware of whatever risk level they may have encountered in that situation?
Well, I mean, that's, Casey and our job will be to first sit down, identify the students that have been in the class, identify what the seating arrangement is, and then we will sit down with either ourselves and or with the assistance of case trackers, and we'll have personal conversations with the parents, the students, to identify who's at risk. And then with the school using this, with the 6-foot seating arrangement, our hope and intent is that we should be able to, have these quick discussions so that we can identify just the immediate case contacts so that we can limit the disruption within the classroom. But also, our job is to identify, to reduce the risk, and then we'll manage those contacts, through the health department. And then again, we'll be working with the public health nurses to make sure that we're communicating, how long the kids will be out, whether or not we need any other, teachers or students to be monitoring for symptoms, what those symptoms should be. But we'll be following the state and CDC protocols on case tracking, case management. But we do this, and definitely in Hopkinton, a lot more personal. We provide a lot more personal attention to this than you might get outside of Hopkinton, and our job is to educate everybody so that they know where they stand when they're going to be released from quarantine if necessary. And then we will provide any assistance with identifying testing facilities. We, in addition to keeping a list of testing facilities, we maintain a list of those that have a faster turnaround or other options so that we can provide additional answers or clarity about their status. And again, we try to provide them as quick a turnaround as we can, so that again we can maintain some continuity and minimize the disruption in a family's life.
And just to add to that, I think part of your question, Carol, is about notification. So in terms of a staff member or something, knowing that would be guided by Shaun and his department as well in terms of the notification piece.
But again, it's all about communicating. And so there'll be the personalized communications between the cases, the case contacts in the department, and then the families in those affected classrooms. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're just reducing any fear, concern, and then if we have an educated population, I think we can bring a lot more ease to these kind of unsettling times.
Yes, and I think some of what you're talking about there is of great concern, not only to families, but also to our faculty. How will they know if there's a student in their class, for example, that has tested positive? And while I have said this many, many times, I will repeat it that, what we are seeing as a general condition is that if you are a student under 18, your symptoms are far less than if you are, kind of an older adult. And we do have some of our faculty who are, older than 40, older than 50, older than 60. And, each time you advance a decade or you may have some kind of underlying health condition, things are different, I think, than if you're a 10-year-old sitting in our classrooms. But one of the things that we're sort of lucky about, I guess, K-5, is that in terms of contact tracking and notification, our kids are going to sort of be in a very small world,
Right.
So they'll be in a classroom, they'll sit at the same desk, they'll sit at the same place to eat lunch, they'll travel with the same cohort of children, they'll come in the same door every day. So they'll ride the same bus, they'll sit in the same seat on the same bus. So it's really sort of easy to know where they've been and, with whom they've been. It gets a little bit trickier, I think, at the high school level. But certainly, it would be our immediate response to alert anyone about contact with somebody who is COVID-19 positive, because our first and foremost goal is obviously to mitigate and stop the transmission of the virus. Right.
And research is showing that children under the age of 12 have very few receptors that are the receptors that COVID utilized to get into the cells. They just have a lot fewer of those receptors available, and that's why we're not seeing a higher level of infectivity or whatever in the youth population. And those, so when you go from age, I think 12 to 18, there's a slight increase, but it's really not until you get 20 and older that the cells are present at a high enough concentration where it becomes a greater risk. And then in that population, people may have experimented with smoking or have had other illnesses or injuries that cause these receptors to be more, present more in your body. And so, if in general, if your child is healthy, and there really should be a low amount of risk there should be a lower amount of risk in the classroom in general. And I believe that, again, our children should be in good hands if we're all following the proper protocols.
So Kathy, I'm going to ask you a question about ESY. So ESY is a summer program that takes place in our schools. And I know, Kathy, you were the school nurse who worked at ESY for a great number of years. And I can tell by your surroundings that you are at the Elmwood School right now. Yeah. So my question is, how has ESY changed because of the presence of COVID?
Sure. I think a couple of the bigger changes were we right away identified that having ESY in two separate buildings sort of brought the need to having a nurse in each building, because you want to have that nurse professional person that's there to be available to students, staff, and families for any kind of discussion, assessment, follow-up, as well as communicating with Shaun and Casey. I think the look to it's a little bit different in that we wanted to make sure that the families had training before. We met with them on Zoom at night. I was part of that as well, and we did training with them. Dr. Zaleski talked to them about the program. We talked about all these safety measures we had in place in terms of hand hygiene, mask wearing, PPE. We also spent on the additional time with the staff doing training. How do you don a gown if you need to? How do you take it off? You think that that's simple, but there is a sort of a routine to that. Sarah and I, the ESY lead nurse, spent some time developing protocols before, talking about what it would look like if she needed to see a student who perhaps had, or a staff member who perhaps had COVID-like symptoms or COVID symptoms, what an assessment would look like, where that would happen. And so there were additional steps focused on the safety of a summer program that looked different from when I was the ESY nurse and there wasn't a pandemic. Hand hygiene was always something that we did, but it's all of these additional steps that are helping to make the program successful and for the kids to feel safe and parents to feel secure with that.
So I guess I'm wondering, before we kind of wrap things up, my advice to parents would be to just follow that entire set of strategies that we have, everything from wearing that mask to, and I should point out now that we have bought a plexiglass face shield for every student in the Hopkinton Public Schools, and those are absolutely available to parents. We are thinking about making them a requirement for riding the bus. But beyond, the masks and the hand washing, staying home when you're sick, covering your coughs and sneezes, all of those things that we are asking people to do on a daily basis. Do you have any sort of advice or some comment that you would like to make that you feel like it's one of those things that every parent should know about sending their child to school, or every teacher should know about coming back safely or as safely as possible into our buildings?
So for me as a school nurse, I'm always thinking about the social emotional piece as well. So I think that parents are going to be anxious, and we want them to be able to verbalize that and share those concerns. But I also think have thoughtful discussions with their children about, sort of talking about all the things that we're doing and helping their kids to feel comfortable coming, and whether that's practicing with a mask or washing their hands or allowing their children to ask those questions about what's that going to look like? What do you mean all my friends are going to be on the bus? To have some family kind of time to talk about fears and expectations, and that everybody's going to be happy to see their friends and good things are going to happen and you're going to have a classroom experience, but it will be a little different, so that there's that comfort level and that balance, because we all haven't been together, since March. And I think, you want to be able to have those open conversations.
Yes, and you raise a great point there, because I think, that looks different at every level. For our younger children, they are going to feel a little bit sad that even though they're with their friends, they're not with their friends. And I think when that translates to, more of our adolescent-aged kids in the middle school and high school, we're really going to need for those students to recognize that even though they're with their friends, they're not physically close to their friends in terms of proximity. It's really important. So thank you.
Well, and Casey and I, we both have young children. And so, my 5 and 9 year old, we sit down and we've discussed how, we've discussed how it's going to look when they go back. They're excited to see their friends, but they also, even my 5-year-old understands that things are different because of COVID. We've had these discussions, and I think she really understands a lot more maybe than we give her credit for. And she knows that my job is to help ensure that she has a safer school experience. And what I would say is that we're doing everything we can on our end to ensure that the children in Hopkinton and the parents in Hopkinton can send their schools, or they can go to school with ease, and that we're going to continue to review our practices and tweak our practices to make sure that we're providing as safe an experience as we can. And because it's not just that we're going through the motions, it's because we have a vested interest in making sure that these school environments are safe, because our children are, participating in the programs,
Absolutely.
In school. And same to be said for the teachers and that, staff and administration. We're all in this together, and that's, at the end of the day, if we follow this community model where if we're all committed to doing our part, again, I'm confident that we can have a positive fall school experience.
And I appreciate that very much. I think, listening to the two of you and doing some significant reading, that also instills confidence for me that we can open our doors if we do have that community participation in making good choices. As a school district, I think we get to the place where we do, in fact, have to weigh, what are the needs of our kids, and, beyond just that sort of school achievement and the academic growth that I think we need, there is a lovely social, emotional, behavioral, nutritional, all of those other components come to be in our public schools, and our kids need that too. So as we're weighing the kind of pros and cons and, the very carefully calculated risk levels, I think it makes great sense to bring our kids back into schools and to do that in ways that are, mitigating risk and practicing all the safety measures. We do have, behavioral expectations for our kids. We have physical plant preparedness, alliances with, town organizations such as the DPH. We have protocols around lunch and transportation and all of those things. So I'm very excited for the start of school, but I'm also very cautious. And I want people to know that we are taking every care to make sure that children and staff are safe. And in the event that, there is a spike in the virus, we are prepared to return to remote instruction.
Just prior to this, I was on a chain call with all of the local health directors, just trying to assess what policies and procedures that we have or that are common within our districts, and what differences we should be, or what areas for improvement we might recommend. So this is something that we're working on, every minute of every day. And then we're in contact. I have 3 calls a week with the DPH, the Department of Labor, and multiple other state agencies, so that we are sharing all of these best practices, and then we can bring those best practices to bear, in Hopkinton. And it's a lot of commitment, but again, we believe that we wouldn't be considering opening the schools if we didn't think we could do it safely. So.
And similarly, after this, I'll be joining my regional nurse leader working summer group, where the nurse leaders from mostly around here, but out as far as what DPH considers Metro West, way out there, talking about protocols and having like templates. And so we're communicating the same things to pediatricians and providers. And so I think that professional piece of it is important as well. And being in contact with the DPH school health unit in terms of what comes from DPH comes through them out to us, and just maintaining that connection as well, I think has been important.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. I think, the information that you are able to share with me, obviously I'm not a medical professional. I come from an academic educational background. So I really do need, the two of you and Casey and all of the other school nurses as part of this team to make sure that we're making good decisions about reopening our schools. If there are parents or faculty or students who have additional questions, you can always reach out to me in the superintendent's office. And thank you both again for being here. And thank you to HCAM for being able to film this and help us out with some educational TV.
Okay, and we're back. Just a couple minutes left. I want to extend, there we go, here I am. Wanted to extend my thanks to those professionals for sharing their time with us. And also, if you're interested in more, tomorrow on the Hangout Hour will be our superintendent, Dr. Cavanaugh, who will be discussing personal protective equipment and cleaning and issues such as that. And she'll be live from 2 to 3. So please feel free to send us your comments and your questions. There's all kind of ways that you can get in touch with us, either through the Facebook comments or through YouTube chat, or you could send us an email to studio@hcam.tv, or you could go on our website and visit the contact us form and send in your question that way. On our first program, we had all 4 methodologies used for people to contact us, which is really awesome for me. I'm really happy to see that people are connecting with us, and we know this is a critical, huge, important that touches upon everyone in our community. And our goal is to share as much information as we can and to keep you informed and connected during these difficult times. So that is going to wrap up for this show, and I hope that we will see you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock. same bat time, same bat channel, and bring your questions for the school system. All right. Thank you very much for watching the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. On behalf of Bob and Matt, who were my team today working on the show, we thank you for your time, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.